Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with the Simple Sports Podcast. It is Capo here. And yesterday, 10-5 in our picks. Gotta love it. If you took any of our picks yesterday, you made some bank. I didn't bet every single game, but I bet most of the ones that I talked about in the last episode. I told you the two that I stayed away from. I should have picked them because both turned out to be pretty good. But nevertheless, 10-5 yesterday. That's a solid day. So if you took any of those picks, you made some money. Give yourselves a nice round of applause. But today's word is expectations, and we got to start with the Falcons. Bears at Falcons, plus 3.5 for the Bears. We did win this bet, although it was looking a little shaky due to one unnamed quarterback, Mitch Trubisky. Oh, sorry, I said that. The Falcons have given up a total of 58 points in their most embarrassing losses. One at the Super Bowl, the last two against the Cowboys and the Bears. And my thing is, Dan Quinn has to go. You cannot have this happen. I don't know how it hasn't already happened. I thought he should have been fired before last year started. There's no way he should have been the coach heading into this season. And now we've just had two of the most embarrassing losses I think I've ever witnessed, certainly in recent memory. It's been a struggle. Struggle is being nice, honestly, for the Falcons. And I got a crazy stat for you, a crazy little sequence of events that I want to talk about when it comes to what the Falcons did yesterday. So the Falcons yesterday, entering the fourth quarter, Chicago trailed 26-10. They scored 20, count them, 20 unanswered points. All Nick Foles scores, by the way, including one that was a jump ball to Allen Robinson in which the DB made an outstanding play. Otherwise, it would have been 27 straight or 27 unanswered. They did that in 4.5 minutes to take a 30-26 lead on the Falcons and ended up taking a knee to seal the game after being down 16 points. The Atlanta Falcons, in their last three most embarrassing losses, the Super Bowl, last week versus the Cowboys, and this week versus the Bears, have given up a total of 58 points. Dan Quinn has got to go. And just for the record, that was the second biggest comeback, or the second comeback when being down by 16 or more points by the Bears, and they both happened this year. But here's the thing. They are not the only team that had a rough day yesterday. I picked the Bears. I didn't see it going down in that fashion, but I tweeted this when it was 26-10. I tweeted, the Falcons are about to blow this lead. And sure enough, they did it. But now, as I said, they weren't the only team that had a bad day yesterday. The Cowboys had a rough day. They were giving up big plays. I've never seen so many. And Russell Wilson didn't play well yesterday. Let's not get it twisted. He didn't play great. But it didn't matter because I have never in my life seen so many guys just running wide open all game. Dallas, if you haven't noticed, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are pretty good. You may want to cover them. DK Metcalf got loose for what should have been 2 deep passing touchdowns, one of which he just made an obviously boneheaded play, and the other he ended up making to win the game. Tyler Lockett was open. I think he had 3 touchdowns yesterday. DK should have had 2. If I'm not mistaken, Tyler Lockett had 3. And they were all wide. It's just unreal. The Cowboys leaving guys running wide open all game. Now, here's the thing for the Cowboys. Offensively, they're actually doing okay, I guess. Most of their stats come in, I don't want to say garbage time because they weren't out of the game yesterday necessarily, but they're behind. They have no choice but to throw the ball as many times as they did and get away from what really they should be doing, which is feeding the ball to Ezekiel Elliott, who himself doesn't necessarily look great. But it's not been good. And Dak Prescott, my goodness, the one thing that they said he didn't do was turn the ball over. He was supposed to be this safe, conservative guy, marching the ball up and down the field, making great decisions. And all I see is a guy that's turning the ball over at the rate that Daniel Jones is doing, which we crush him for, but not Dak Prescott. Because, see, everyone wants Dak Prescott to get paid. And listen, I think Dak Prescott is a fine quarterback. I think he's just fine. He is not $40 million a year money. He's just not. We saw it yesterday. We saw him miss, I think it was Dalton Schultz, on what would have been a third down conversion towards the end of the game. It was a huge play, and he just sailed it high and wide, almost out of bounds, not even close. And those are the throws. Like, can he, yes, do I love the way he fights at the end of the games? Of course. I want my guy to be fighting the way Dak Prescott does. Like, there's nothing about his resolve that bothers me. Everything about his makeup is, I think, top-notch. What is not top-notch is his talent. And guys, you cannot kid yourself. The talent matters. Tom Brady is not the most talented person to ever play the position, but Tom Brady is very talented, okay? Drew Brees, not the most talented person to play the position, but he's very talented. Dak Prescott is just not that talented. He is a great guy. He seems to be a great leader. And as I said, I love his resolve and his composure during the games. His talent leaves a lot to be desired, okay? It leaves a lot to be desired. Now, on the flip side of that, a guy in his division named Carson Wentz is the total opposite, where I think his talent is top level. His intangibles leave a lot to be desired. His mechanics have fallen, and that comes from pressing. He's doing too much. He's doing way too much, and you can see it in his mechanics. He's forcing the ball. You saw it with Cam Newton, and that's who he looks like right now. He looks like what Cam Newton was before he got some work done to him as far as fine-tuning and good coaching. Cam Newton looked like he was just trying to force the ball where he wanted it, and it was erratic. It was all over the place. It was short here. It was high there. It was wide here. It was never where it was supposed to be, and that's what Carson Wentz looks like right now. He looks like a man who is trying to do too much, and he doesn't need to. Now, there are a lot of other issues in Philly. They can't protect Carson Wentz. He's getting hit constantly, even by a Bengals team that's not very good. And quite frankly, at this point, Joe Burrow looks like a better quarterback. He really does. And it was painfully obvious yesterday watching the two go against each other. Joe Burrow with the lack of everything around him, and Carson Wentz with all of the things around him. And they looked like the same guy at a minimum, looked like the same guy. And yet one guy is playing in his third NFL game ever. And one guy looks like he's playing in his third NFL game. He looks like a deer in headlights. I mean, it's just all over the place. He's jumping around here. He's throwing balls into the dirt, throwing them behind guys on easy passes. It's not looking good for the Eagles. And I said this before the year. I didn't think he was going to make it that far. I thought it was a very strong possibility that we'd see Jalen Hurts sooner than later. And I tell you what, if he keeps playing the way he is, that's definitely going to be the case. Now, another team I have to talk about is my own, and that's the Titans. Which is odd because one of the things over the last, go back 15 years if you want to, one of the things you never said about the Titans is, man, they got a really good offense over there. The Titans have had some pretty good defenses in the last 5 to 10 years. Last year, I think, was the first year it started to fall off. I think the 2 or 3 years before that, they had certainly a top 10. You could argue a top 5 defense. It is not even close to that this year. Now, I don't think there's a single problem with the offense. I think Derrick Henry has gotten moving and will continue that trend as the year goes on. Derrick Henry, his season is much like his game-to-game production. Derrick Henry to start the game is just not. He's not going to be hitting his head all over the goalposts to start the game. Derrick Henry is a beat you down, grind you down back, and as the game goes on, you got that big moose that runs like a deer, as Skip Bayless says, coming down at you full speed on that zone stretch. And listen, not that I could play in the NFL, but there is no way in 25, 30-degree weather when it's going to be or what it's going to be as the season progresses and it gets cold out there and it's quiet, it's cold because there's no fans or very little fans. It's going to be quiet, cold, and miserable. And you got to tackle that dude. That's when you're going to see the true value of Derrick Henry as the season progresses, much like as the game progresses. You saw him yesterday against the Vikings. He'd get 2 or 3 yards. Every now and then he'd have like a 4 to 6 yard run. And then they got into the third quarter. They got into the fourth quarter, and those 2 and 3 yard runs started to turn into 6-yard runs, and those 6-yard runs started to turn into 10-yard runs. He never broke one. He hasn't broken one all year. I think one of his he might have had his longest run yesterday, like 12 yards. I'm not 100% sure on that. It's just off the top of my head. But that's the way he progresses through the game, and that's the way he progresses through the season. So I'm not concerned with Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown is out. And even with that, Ryan Tannehill, although he made some really bad decisions yesterday with the football, I think overall, obviously a much better quarterback than Marcus Mariota, and has given some much needed juice to this offense offensively, or in the passing game, I should say. I never thought Derrick Henry was nimble enough for them to run some of the things that they do. He's just not nimble enough in the backfield. And within that box, he's just not nimble enough. Now, and I think that's why the zone stretch works so well, because obviously he gets going and he's hard to tackle. Well, that zone stretch is a one-cut thing. Every now and then they'll throw in a cutback, but he's getting a full head of steam, planting that foot in the dirt, and going north and south, and that's when it's a problem. So he'll be fine. I don't think they'll need him to carry them early on in the season, especially with the warmer weather and the sporadicness of defenses early on. They'll be able to move the football as he sort of works his way into the game plan each week. Their problem is defensively. They can't stop anyone. Their pass rush is okay, not great. Their linebackers are good, not great. They can cover, I think, pretty well. Not so great in the run game. They sorely miss Jarrell Casey and a few others on the defensive side. It's been terrible defensively. And so I think if they can find, either they have to go out and get a piece. Now obviously, they're missing a few guys as well. Dory Jackson, I think, will be back next week, maybe the week after. So that should certainly help in the pass game or in the pass defense. Clowney got banged up. Looked like his elbow maybe in the game. Hopefully he's okay, although he's been a little quiet. But on that last pass, or on that last drive, he was outstanding. Between him and Jeffrey Simmons was a beast yesterday. And lining the two of them up together, they get one-on-ones inside, especially against those guards. It hasn't quite paid off yet with Clowney, but I think we'll start to see him. You got to remember, he signed with basically a week left in the season, just a few days left or before the season started. You can say what you want about the offseason. I'm sure he did a lot to get in shape in the offseason, but especially with no preseason, it's just not going to be the same until we get another game, 2, 3, maybe 4 games in. Once we get to about week 8 or so, I think you'll start to see him a lot more productive on a snap-to-snap basis. But each week, the secondary has just gotten worse. And the statistics bear that out. They've progressively given up more deep passes and deep pass yards as far as air yards with each game. They were under 30 in week 1. They were at about 50 in week 2. And just this last week against the Vikings, they gave up over 100 to a rookie. So it's not looking good defensively. Like I said, they've got to make some adjustments, and they will. It's early on in the season. I don't think their defense is as bad as it's being led on right now. Like I said, it's early, no preseason. There's a lot of new things being thrown at them. And defenses right now just have to catch up. It is what it is with football. That's the way it always has been. So I'm happy that they're 3-0, first time in a long time. And I think, like I said, I think the defense will pick up. Now, let's review some of our picks here, because, like I said, we had a pretty good day yesterday. All right, we already talked about the Falcons and Bears. We talked a little bit about the Cowboys and the Seahawks, Titans, Vikings. Let's move on to the Raiders, +6 at the Pats. This is one of the ones that I missed on. I just thought 6 points was a lot, even on the road. Especially with the way the Raiders had been playing the first 2 weeks. But this is the team that I thought we would see going into the season as far as the Raiders are concerned. They weren't very good. Bill Belichick put a hamper on all of that stuff. And here's a few things for you. Derek Carr. He's afraid to throw the football down the field. He is just afraid to do it. You can watch the film. There are so many plays in which guys are open or coming open, and with anticipation, he could make throws down the field. He does not do it. And I don't get why. Maybe he's being coached to do so. Maybe he's just afraid to do so. I couldn't tell you. But the guys are being schemed open. You can watch the film. You can watch the all 22, and you can see guys running wide open. But he's not turning it loose. In fact, of his passes, 35 and 37 were to the short left and short right. 17 over the short middle. He has a whopping 18 passes that are anywhere outside of the short left, right, or middle section of the field. 18. That's not good enough. That's not why they drafted Henry Ruggs. That's the opposite reason. Henry Ruggs is supposed to take the top off the defense. Well, he can, but if you're not throwing it to him, what good does it do? I mean, it may loosen up the defense for you to do other things, but ultimately the point of having the guy take the top off the defense is so you can throw the deep ball. And they don't do it. They had no shot of beating the Pats because they don't have a quarterback who is capable or is willing or is coached not to throw the ball down the field. So we missed on this one as far as the bet goes, but the Raiders themselves are exactly what I thought they were. Colts minus 11.5 at home versus the Jets. I mean, what else is there to say about the Jets? I won't talk about the Jets ever on this podcast unless they get Trevor Lawrence next year. Then they may be interesting. Sam Darnold has regressed. I think it's time to move on. I never liked him to begin with, but you know, he got drafted high and he was America's darling and all that stuff. He's not very good, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Darnold's not very good. And listen, I know a lot of it has to do with where he was drafted, which was the Jets, and a lot has to do with his coach. But there are a lot of things that he does that are on Sam Darnold. And that's as much as I'm going to talk about the Jets. It made me think no different of the Colts that they beat up on the Jets. They should have beat up on the Jets. In fact, if they had done anything less than what they did yesterday, I would have been extremely disappointed. I would have been happy because, you know, they are in the division with the Titans, but they weren't very good. Or the Jets aren't very good, and the Colts did exactly what we needed them to do, minus 11.5. That's a lot of points. It didn't matter. It's the Jets. Chargers, minus 6 at home versus the Panthers. I actually missed this one. For some reason, I counted this as a win. So we didn't go 10-5. We went 9-6, actually. We have the ability to go 10-6, depending on what happens tonight. Chargers, minus 6.5 at home versus the Panthers. Not sure what happened here. You would think, granted, it is a rookie quarterback, but going up against a very, very not good defense in the Panthers. The Panthers may be clicking. You have to, again, I've said it a million times. It is early. It's only week 3. They do have a new coach and a new quarterback, so they have a full overhaul, and they're missing their best player in Christian McCaffrey. You have to give them a little bit of time. I think this says more about the Chargers than it does about the Panthers. Chargers were not very good yesterday on defense. Not good at all, actually. And listen, do I expect Herbert to be carrying them to wins? No, not really. I mean, he's a rookie. He's been thrown into the fire. Like mid-season, he got thrown into the fire an hour before the game last week. Do I expect them to be lighting things on fire? No. I did expect them to beat the Panthers by a touchdown yesterday just because of this quote-unquote vaunted defense that the Chargers have. It's not there. I had the Chargers somewhere in the bottom 20 of my power rankings, and that appears to be the case. I had the Jets, if not last, maybe second to last, but they're definitely last. So I'll be updating my power rankings as well. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. Cardinals, minus 5.5 at home versus the Lions. Another miss here. Kyler Murray was not very good yesterday. Newsflash, he wasn't very good. Threw 3 interceptions. And I think maybe he heard some whispers about this MVP thing. Maybe it just got to him a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it was just an off day. The Lions did get Jeff Okudah back for his debut yesterday, so he's a really good cornerback. Let's not get it twisted. So I'm sure that shifted some things for the Lions defensively so that they could get more back in order. But yeah, Kyler Murray was not very good yesterday. It happens. All the MVP talk has ceased basically overnight. I had him in my MVP race, of course, as well. Listen, it's still week 3. It's not that he's out of it. Russell Wilson didn't have a great day, but he at least from a film standpoint, his numbers were outstanding. But you watch the film, you can see he didn't have a great day. Aaron Rodgers lit everyone up yesterday. So Kyle Murray, not a great day. Lost that bet. Moving on. Bills, -1.5 at home versus the Rams. It looked like they were going to choke it up. They were looking great early, and then I don't know what happened in the middle of that game there, but all hell broke loose. Here's the thing. Josh Allen is still missing easy throws, and his mechanics are still off. Now, they are very much improved from last year and this previous year, but they're still off. Last week, they basically ran the same play against the Dolphins. Like, of all the plays they ran, they probably ran this play 70% of the time. They may be a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but it may not be. They ran basically overs from different formations. They just crossed people. Man-to-man defense, the Dolphins played, and they crossed all game long, and Josh Allen was hitting and missing all over the field. It looked great because he had a great stat line and all that good stuff, but the film is not the prettiest. It's just not. And that's okay. He's getting better. He's young. Again, he's made significant progress, so it's hard to knock what he's doing. But if you're just looking at what he's doing, it's not great. It's not consistently great, let me say that. And you can see it in his passing charts. If you look at his passing chart, his passer rating for deep left, deep middle, and deep right is 77, 39, and 57. So it's not good. Deep left, middle, right, it's not good. It's not accurate. Middle of the field, sort of intermediate range, intermediate to deep, he's around 80. And short left and right, he's 99 to 90. Much better short left and right, a lot less ground to cover with the ball. But out to the numbers and mid-range, from intermediate to deep, over 100 passer rating on either side of the field, over 100. I think he was 100 on the right, 110, 115, something like that on the left. He can sling it, and he can get it out where he needs to. And anything that's sort of more than a short pass, which requires a little bit more touch, and anything that's not just a flat-out cannon shot down the field, he's fine. But the placement is off. The mechanics are still a little bit off. And like I said, he'll get it together, because much like someone like Lamar Jackson, even though Lamar Jackson came in super raw, you can see the progression from year 1 to year 2. And you can see it from year 2 to year 3. We can say the same thing about Josh Allen. One thing I did take away from this, though, because I was on the fence about the Rams going into this game. I wasn't a big fan of them heading into the season. I started to come around on them. They did, unfortunately, lose yesterday, but I saw what I think I needed to see to think that this is a good football team. They just couldn't quite hang on at the end. It's amazing that they were even in the game the way it started. But that's a good football team. I'm convinced now. It is what it is. So one of my stayaways, the Steelers, -4 at home. Probably should have bet this one because it was not close as a score. I think it was 28-21. Texans started off okay, and it just came apart towards the end. Texans are 0-3 now, which, as a Titans fan, I am loving. But Bill O'Brien says that there is no reason to panic whatsoever. Well, listen, I'm not a football expert. I'm no GM or NFL scout or anything to that nature. But I would definitely say it's time to do something. If it's not time to panic, you got to do something. Offensively, I think they're actually a lot better off than I thought they would be without DeAndre Hopkins. Certainly not what they used to be. But I didn't see – I mean, they haven't fallen off the map. They did put up 21 points yesterday against the Steelers defense. So it's not a total loss on offense. But they did lose something, for one. Okay, DeAndre Hopkins is a player. And for two, what they did lose, they certainly cannot make up on the defensive end because their defense is terrible. Think about, so if you sit there, you think about the 2, 3, 4 teams that we think are just terrible, especially on defense, but just terrible overall. More specifically on defense. This year, the Seahawks have given up 86 points in 3 games. The Browns have given up 88 points. The Lions, 92. The Jets, 94. The Cowboys, 97. The Vikings, 102. The Falcons, 108. The Texans have given up 95 points. No, it's not the worst. obviously, but it is third worst. It is the third most in the league through 3 games. On top, again, you average that out, that's just under 30 or just over 30 points a game. That's incredible. And I love Deshaun Watson. But asking him to go score 30 points a game with this team, man. Bill O'Brien, it may not be time to panic, but you gotta do something, man, because this is not looking good. My other stay away, another one that I should have bet, the 49ers minus 3.5 at the Giants. So I heard a crazy stat listening to the Bill Simmons podcast. The 49ers yesterday had 40% of their salaried or their rostered salary out on the field yesterday. 40%, not even half of their team. And they waxed the Giants. The Giants just look like a peewee foot. They look like Pop Warner out there. Daniel Jones, I initially thought it was a terrible move. I came around a little bit after seeing last year. I was like, okay, well, let's give this guy a chance. It's not there. It's just not. And with no Saquon Barkley, all it did was amplify his shortcomings yesterday. He looked terrible. The Giants have a long, long way to go. And Joe Judge, man, you got your work cut out for you because they're probably going to let you go through the year. If next year is not a significant improvement for the Giants after the last 3 or 4 years that they've had, he's going to be out, and they're going to be looking for another head coach next year. Washington +7 at the Browns. Total miss on this one. I think Dwayne Haskins is a bust. He's got to be. He looks lost out there. He's throwing the ball to any and everyone that's not on the Washington team. He made a few plays yesterday that were like, okay. And he had a few long completions that were really yards after catch for short passes. He looks lost. Much like Sam Darnold, much like Carson Wentz even. And Carson Wentz is farther along than Dwayne Haskins is. But it looks like they can't read coverage. Now, it's easy to say that sitting here behind a microphone at a desk. But you watch the film and it's like, well, what is he actually looking at? And then you wonder, is it him not knowing what he's doing? Is he being coached to do something else? Because there's always that potential. I mean, you hear of coaches that simply don't know what they're talking about all the time. You hear those stories. So is it being coached to do something that is just not working? I know what it looks like. It looks like he can't play. And it looks like they're going to be in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes along with a few other teams because it's not working. And now Chase Young is hurt. I don't know how long he's going to be out. He had a growing injury. Haven't heard anything as of yet. This is still Monday, so who knows? It could get ugly for Washington. It can get late real early for them. Maybe it's time to turn to Alex Smith before it's too late. The division is still up for grabs. The division is terrible. And they're the only team with the win, aren't they? No, the Cowboys got to win. So they're essentially tied with the Cowboys. How much longer do you let this thing go before you turn to a new quarterback? You got one sitting on the bench. Obviously, we know the health concerns. But, I mean, at the rate that they're going, especially with the way their division is, maybe you could sneak in and win this division at 8-8, 9-7 if you turn to a different quarterback. But Dwayne Haskins does not look like he's the answer. Bucks -5.5 at the Broncos. Not close, really. Tom Brady and the Bucks look a lot better. I gotta tell you, the more I watch this Bucks team and Tom Brady, it's not that I'm concerned. And again, it's only week 3, so maybe I just need to give it a little more time, even myself, even though I've been the one that's saying give it more time. It needs a little more pop. It just needs a little more pop for me to be all in. I'm still in on the Bucks. I got my notepad out and I've been taking a few notes and not everything is all crispy. Now, again, week 3, maybe they just need a few more weeks. And like I said, they've had a fairly last easy 2 games. So who knows what they'll look like in week 7, week 8. Right now, like I said, I don't think they're better than Green Bay right now. I don't think they are better than I'd hesitate to say that they're better than the Rams right now, to be perfectly honest. But again, it's week 3, so I'll give it a little bit more time. But I got to tell you, I got an eyebrow raise to that. The Seahawks -5 at home. Like I said, we covered that. We're not going to go back into it. And then last night, the Saints and the Packers. Saints -3 at home. We did lose this. Couple things. One, Sean Payton, please take your Taysom Hill playbook and just scrap it. Okay, it's not. No one's fooled anymore. It was a cool little gadget thing that worked a couple years ago and a little bit last year. Unless you're just going to turn. Now I would be interested to see if you just turn the offense over to him. That now you got my attention. But these little gadget plays that he's in on, it's not there. But the Saints have a really big issue here. Brandon Marshall, first things first, pointed this out, and it's noticeable. It's substantial. Their offense is obviously all Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. That's it. Drew Brees looked uncomfortable throwing the football to anyone that is not named Michael Thomas or Alvin Kamara. He is afraid to pull the trigger. There was a few plays where Emmanuel Sanders was wide open or coming open, and he didn't pull the trigger for whatever reason. And there's been a lot of talk about the noodle arm. I got to tell you, it looks like a noodle to me. And let's talk about some of his stats for the year and for the last few years. Because your man Drew Brees has an average of 3.2 air completed yards. You know who that's sandwiched in between? Sam Darnold and Dwayne Haskins. Yikes. That's good for 31st in the league. That is not good. His air yards per attempt, the last 5 seasons, 2016, 7.6, 28th in the league. 2017, 6.3, last in the league. 2018, 7.1, 29th in the league. 2019, 6.1, or 6.7, 30th in the league. This year, 4.8. That is dead last in the NFL. That ain't great. All right, boys and girls. So we just discussed the picks. Like I said, we had a pretty solid week. But now we must talk about the Monday Night Football showdown between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to be a doozy. I cannot wait for this game tonight. But we got to talk about showdown. I made some good money yesterday. I don't know if you took my picks from Draftkings, but we nailed the picks and we nailed Draftkings. I put up 220 points yesterday with one of my teams. Good enough to win me a decent chunk of money. So take advantage. Take advantage of these picks. Now, tonight, your must plays. Aside from the obvious stuff, right? You got to have, at a minimum, you got to have at least Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. You can't not have both, obviously. I would even try to get both on my team. But if you're going to go with one or the other, you got to. So aside from the obvious, I think the 2 plays tonight are Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. Andrews is obviously a big red zone threat, and he is one of Jackson's favorite targets. He targets him a lot. Didn't get a bunch of work last week. Trust me, that'll change tonight. And Hollywood Brown doesn't get as much. He gets a lot of targets, obviously. I don't think he gets as many as Mark Andrews. But here's the thing. Hollywood Brown is your big play guy, right? He can get over the top. Keenan Allen in week 2 went for 7 for 96 yards. Will Fuller in week 1 went 8 for 112. So tonight, I'm expecting Hollywood Brown to go 4 to 6 catches for 75 plus yards and a big play touchdown. He may even get over 100 with the big play. I think they're going to score early and try to sit on the ball, and then they're going to have to rally late because the Chiefs are going to storm back. I don't think the Ravens are going to end up winning this game by much. I do have the Ravens winning, but 3.5 points to the Chiefs is too much, so I'm taking the Chiefs to cover. I think the Ravens win on the late field goal, and those are your must plays for tonight. Now I have a few must avoids. Now one is sort of an asterisk. It's not that he's a must avoid. I got what they say, a bad feeling about Clyde Edwards-Helaire tonight. Baltimore's defense is not going to allow him to just run all over them. Now, he was He was a little bit of a disappointment last week. I think some people are going to assume that he will bounce back this week, and I just don't think that's happening against Baltimore's defense. So I would avoid Clyde Edwards-Helaire for tonight. I would try to stack it up with receivers or tight ends. I would avoid Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I would also avoid Mark Ingram for the Ravens. Their committee is a little too sporadic for my taste, with 3 capable running backs, and then you have Lamar Jackson as well. And then what a lot of people don't know is last year he had 17% of his touches or targets turned into touchdowns, so almost 1 in 5. That's just unlikely. That's just unlikely to happen again. In fact, it's very unlikely to happen again. Not to mention he's 31 years old, and the Ravens have 2 additional good running backs, both of which are younger than Mark Ingram. If you can sneak him in late, go for it, because he's starting to find the end zone at least once tonight. They just run the ball too much for him not to. But I would not bet on it, because I don't think otherwise he's going to have a pretty good night. I think he'll have a decent night. I mean, he's a good player, but fantasy-wise, I'm not seeing it. Now, your value/sleeper tonight, for me, I only got one, and it's Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins, and that's if he's healthy. He's carried a questionable designation into the game, but he's probably going to play. When he's healthy, he is productive. And a key stat to note, a lot of people that if they don't choose Sammy Watkins will default to Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman, when he was healthy, both him and Sammy Watkins, he saw only 29% of the snaps in week 1 compared to Watkins. So I would go with Watkins here, $5,000 for Watkins versus $4,600 for Hardman. I think Watkins is a safer play, and like I said, if he's healthy, he's going to be productive. They're probably going to bracket Tyreek Hill or Kelsey, and the Ravens can probably do both and just pray that they can play man-to-man everywhere else, or match up everywhere else, however they're going to do it. I don't see Hill going for big. I mean, he hasn't been he's been okay this year fantasy-wise. Obviously, he's been, he's a great receiver for them. Fantasy-wise, he didn't have the best weeks. Same thing with Travis Kelsey. They both saw the end zone, so, you'll take that production. But I think for tonight's game, I would go with Sammy Watkins as my value sleeper. I would still have one of those other guys on my team, be it Hill or Kelsey. But I would definitely try to go for Sammy Watkins tonight. My captain's pick tonight is going to be Mark Andrews. I think Mark Andrews is probably going to find the end zone once or twice, and he's going to have a pretty good game. He's going to be covered up a lot by Honey Badger, and they're probably going to double him at times because, like I said, he's a very good receiving tight end. But I think ultimately, between the run game and the play action they'll be able to implement, I think Mark Andrews will do just fine tonight as your captain's pick. And that's what I got for you tonight for the Monday Night Football Showdown, our Week 3 reactions. Again, we had a solid week last week, so I hope you made some money. I hope you make some money tonight. This has been your boy Capo with the Simple Sports Podcast. I will see you all on Thursday to talk about tonight, to talk about Thursday night, and to look forward ahead to Week 4. We are going to do our power rankings next week. I do them every 4 weeks. Next week will be the first new iteration after the preseason, so look forward to that. Until next time, everyone, take care. I will see you all. Peace.